Hello, everyone. Welcome to May's OSRBC Authors Chat. We are so excited you could join us this evening as we host a very exciting author. She's been featured in the New York Times and Cosmopolitan. Joining us tonight to talk about her third book and the most recent release, What is Love, is the wonderful Jen Comfort. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. For anyone that's new here this evening, we have Megan acting as our moderator in the chat panel. We do ask that everyone keeps themselves on mute throughout the evening to aid in our recording quality. Um, um, and then if you have questions, to please submit them in the chat panel. We'll be checking in with Megan throughout the evening for her to ask your questions to Jen. And with that, let's get things started. We always like to kick things off with some icebreaker questions. These are just some fun things to warm up with as people are still joining and getting settled before we start talking about what is love. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ozma for the first question.
Okay, so if you had to pick any main character from a romance to be your book boyfriend or girlfriend, who would it be?
I like to cheat with this one because I met my partner after I finished writing What is Love, but he's so similar to Teddy that I feel like I would probably just pick Teddy so it would get me closer to my real life boyfriend. I know, really cheating answer, but that's the best I could come up with.
That's very cute.
So cute.
I have to say that we're engaged, and so I have to be romantic about it, even though he's not here to listen.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
So we ask all our visiting authors this after the topic came up with one of our very first guest book. Do you have a chocolate drawer?
Yes, but it's in my fridge because I like to keep my chocolate cold, and it's just weed chocolate in there.
Ooh.
If you could perform karaoke with anyone from the past or in the present, who would you choose to do karaoke with and what song?
Well, I feel like the most loyal thing to do is say my crit partner, Joe Segura, who's also my karaoke buddy. She and I had do an incredible duet to Phantom of the Opera, which some of you here have
Yes, you do.
experienced real life. Yes. And so now we've decided that this is our song, and anytime we get together to do karaoke, we just subject everyone to that, including at one point our Lyft driver on the way to karaoke.
So we often ask which Chris is your Chris, but for you, Jen, we wanted to know which Phantom is your favorite Phantom.
Okay, so this is another one that I think is kind of cheating, but have you all seen that there was like a special event at one point that was celebrating Phantom of the Opera, and they had Antonio Banderas come out and do the song with Sarah Brightman, and that clip can be found online. And y'all, it is the sexiest thing I've ever seen. I mean, I think all of the Phantoms that have been up there on stage have done it well. No one has ever done it as poorly as Gerard Butler, but we love him anyway. But I think Antonio Banderas would have been perfect for that role, and it makes me really sad that we never got to see him on stage doing that.
That's actually a good one. Um, if you were a shapeshifter, what would be your animal form?
A cat,
Oh,
like hands down. I have everything in common. I like to sit in the sun. I like to nap, and I'm kind of a bitch.
Okay. If you had to be trapped in a house with five other authors, a hostage writer's retreat of sorts, who would you want to be trapped with?
I could never choose. So I'm going to just like opt out of this question as like a cheat again because I have been so fortunate over the past year and a half or even 2 years since I started going to conferences. I've met so many incredible authors and people have been so nice to me. I'd really just pick all of my friends, but I have more than five because I'm so cool and popular. Not really. It's just because other authors have been so awesome and kind to me, and I would wish that they all lived in Portland so I could see them all the time.
we normally only ask about the first romance novel authors. remember reading, but one of your fans specifically asked us to be broader in scope. So can you talk about the romance novels you cut your teeth on, or basically got you introduced or hooked on to the genre? And did you have any favorite subgenres when you started out reading romance?
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and do any of you remember the L.J. Smith like
The Circle?
Night Hunter series? Well, she did The Circle. She also did Vampire Diaries, but then there was like a series of romances with like different tropes. So there were like vampires and where it was like the YA precursor to the Immortals After Dark series. And I don't know if this is no one ever talks about these anymore, but that was kind of truly my introduction into like classic paranormal romance tropes, some of which are still used in other romance genres. Um, but then after that, I really got into the Anita Blake series, and I even had a fan page that I made. My username was Bad Popsicle for some reason, and I had a fan page where I made popsicles, like little like JPEG popsicles that you could just like right click and save from I think it was like a GeoCities page that I made. You could right click and save and put your favorite character's popsicle on your own website. And that was like when I was in high school. So again, I had a lot of friends and cool hobbies and activities because I was definitely doing that and not making an Anita Blake fan page. Um, and that there were also, I spent a lot of time volunteering in the library. So my introduction to like true romance were probably like historical romance novels, like I think a lot of us. And I remember I think I got written up in school at one point for bringing in Susan Johnson's Wicked to the lunch table and reading it aloud to my friends. And I don't know if you've read this book. It is incredibly bad and problematic and just like over the top. I think at one point this guy is in his 40s and he takes this 18-year-old virginity with a candle. It's pretty awesome for me as a teenager to be reading aloud at school. Why this beam of light is trying to take me out. Sorry, guys.
It's all good.
I'm being abducted by angels. I don't want to go.
The bigger question is, are you no longer blind now?
No, I am still blind, but I'm wearing my contacts. Light blind? No.
Okay. I was starting to wonder. I was like, uh-oh.
No, I was like, oh my God, it's so bright. It keeps following me. It's attacking me.
So, do you have any authors that you feel have influenced you the most in your writing?
Probably the Immortals After Dark series by Cressley Cole. I know my bookshelf is probably too far to see, but I have all of them, and some of them twice, like multiple copies. So yeah, just in terms of like the bonkersness of it, and that was kind of my first like proper introduction to unlikable heroines too.
Awesome. Okay, so time to dig in and chat about what is love. Jen, trivia was a central theme in What is Love. Are you a trivia buff in real life? And how did you go about picking the trivia questions at the start of every chapter?
I don't know if I'm a trivia buff. I do watch Jeopardy every night, but I only get about a quarter of the questions right. So probably wouldn't do very well on the show if I went on, because people always ask me out there, like, have you tried out? I'm like, no, I know how badly I would do, but it doesn't mean that I don't still love it. And so also, I didn't realize how hard it is to write these trivia questions, because when I came up with the idea of putting these cute little trivia questions at the start of each chapter, I was like, this will be really easy. I'll leave it all till the end. So 2 weeks before my deadline, I'm sitting there just absolutely killing myself to write these questions, because it is actually so hard. You can't just take a question somebody else has written because they're all copyrighted. So you have to come up with them on your own. And the structure and format of these questions is actually very specific for Jeopardy in particular. But just in general, like the question itself, it like provides clues throughout the question, and it has to be really concise. So it's almost like composing a tweet, but also has to be really smart and clever and accurate. So there are certain questions that I had written, and then during copyright editing, my copy editor like fact checked me and was like, actually, this is incorrect. And so I would have like 24 hours to come up with new ones. So deeply regret having done that to myself. That was probably harder than writing the whole book. But
No.
really cute idea that I had at the beginning.
Piggyback off of that, what was your favorite piece of trivia that you uncovered while writing the book?
Probably, I mean, I can never pick just one because there's just like so many delicious trivia facts out there. But I probably that juicy fruit flavor. Like no one ever knows what juicy fruit is. It's just like tropical, but it's actually very specifically jackfruit flavored. And I did not know that until I started researching for this book.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That was intriguing. So the group was curious. Was there a piece of trivia that you found while researching that you really wanted to include in the book, but were just not able to find a way to include? And if so, what was it?
Actually, no. I thought that they were going to cut a lot more from this book, so I just put everything in. And then they didn't ask me to cut anything. So that's why the book is just like a trivia dump. Um, yeah, I put everything in there. Everything.
How long did it take you to find or pick the final question for the end of the book?
Wait. Was that the one where it's just like, what is love? Is the
Yes.
answer?
The answer, yeah.
I mean, that was the only one that I actually knew when I set out to write this book, was that was going to be the final question. Because part of my like cute little concept for this book, again, before I had to actually execute it, was that I wanted it to be the structure of a Jeopardy episode. So that's why it's broken into 3 parts. There's like the first round, the second like double round, and then there's the final Jeopardy round. And then like the questions at the start of each chapter are supposed to play into that. And so I was like, well, if their final Jeopardy is what is love, then that's what I want the final chapter to have as its answer. Again, very cute, like high concept, literally. I came up with it while I was high. Much harder to actually implement. I do that to myself a lot where I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if I did this? And then I set myself up to do that. I'm like, oh, this is actually really hard. Why do I hate myself?
So you referenced the 1950s Van Doren trials a couple times in the book. Was that a real thing that you discovered while researching for the book?
Oh yeah. So one of the best books that I read, which I think I referenced in the acknowledgments, is Answers in the Form of Questions by Claire McNear, that kind of goes into the history of Jeopardy. But they talk about why Jeopardy, like producers are so strict about some of the rules. And it's because it is actually a federal crime to cheat on a game show, thanks to the Van Doren trials. Because for those of you who haven't seen the movie with Ralph Fiennes that they did about this, right? It was Ralph Fiennes, right?
Yeah, it was quiz show, wasn't it?
Quiz show, yeah. It's basically, I don't know if I haven't seen that movie, but they did a whole thing where they reenacted this, and it was about this guy who had convinced the entire country that he was this genius, and he was in on it with the producers, and people felt so betrayed, including members of Congress were like, I feel betrayed. I can't believe that reality TV isn't real. And it's because of that, like they were so butthurt that they created a law to make it a federal crime. So I was like, well, of course, if it's a federal crime, then this is like the best plot point ever to like make game shows really dramatic. Scandalous.
So your description of skydiving in the book was very vivid. Was that from your personal experience of skydiving?
Absolutely not. I am very afraid of heights, so I just Googled what is it like to skydive and read a blog post about it. Basically, that's basically how I learned. And honestly, that's how I do a lot of my research is I don't like to just like read facts. I try to read first person accounts because I want to know what it's like for people who experience that. So when I was researching my first book, The Astronaut and the Star, it's about an astronaut. So instead of just Googling stuff about astronauts, I just read a lot of autobiographies of astronauts so I could hear things in their own words.
You could have 100% fooled me that you had like gone skydiving with that description. I was like, wow.
Thank you. I do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons role playing, so I'm very good at faking it.
So you're very successful at balancing rom-com humor with very serious topics in What is Love? What do you think are the keys to maintaining that balance?
I mean, I think that that's what humor is. I mean, the best, in my opinion, as an expert on what humor is that I think the best humor, like humor in some ways, is a way to talk about serious topics so that it's more approachable and accessible, right? Because there are some topics that are really difficult for us to discuss, but comedians especially, they're the ones who are broaching these topics in a way that like the general public can uh kind of like digest more easily or more comfortably because so many people in our world haven't been to therapy. And even those who have been to therapy use like I've been using humor as a coping mechanism my whole life, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So, you know, that's why they say your trauma makes the best comedy later on in life. And so for most of my life, until I went to therapy at like 35, I didn't really know how else to address things except by being funny or address sad things. So that's kind of just like, I became very funny instead of just being like a sad, depressed goth girl. I mean, I still was, but I was funny.
So Jen, you have been very open about having ADHD. And I saw that you are hosting a class in July about writing a book when you have a ADHD. Did you know from the start that you wanted to feature ADHD representation in the book? And what was it like writing Maxine's character as someone who also has ADHD?
Yeah, so this was something really important to me that I wanted to write because when I was growing up, I didn't have any positive representations of women specifically with ADHD. So I think a lot of the representations in media that we see are of like the really stereotypical, like boy, you can't sit still, or like troublemaking boy, like the Bart Simpson type. And I didn't get diagnosed until I was 23. And upon reflection, I thought, I think that if I had seen more examples of what it looks like to be a woman with ADHD, but more importantly, positive examples, then I might have been more likely to see myself in those characters and get diagnosed sooner. And even as an adult, like now, I think we do a much better job of showing women with ADHD in media, but I still think there's an incredible lack of like positive examples. So, we see like, Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, or like Phoebe from Friends. These are all like, kind of or like the manic pixie dream girl are the examples that we get to see now. And I still feel like those are not necessarily the most flattering examples. And I have ADHD, and I wouldn't say I'm like the most successful person in the world, but I've published 3 books. I hold down a job. I have, I keep my dogs and my cat alive, and I keep myself alive, and I feel like I am happy with where I am in life. And I don't think that, and in some ways, I think ADHD has been really positive for my life in that I feel like it makes me more creative and more empathetic. And I don't think that I would trade it even if I could. And it took me a long time to get there in my personal journey. Like I said, I went to a lot of therapy over the past few years to get there, where I just started to like figure out how to remove the shame that I felt about having ADHD. And after that, I was like, well, that's cool, but it sucks that so many other people do feel this sense of shame. And it would be awesome if there were examples of characters who are like, yeah, I have this thing, and there are downsides to the way my brain works, but there also are a lot of positives, and either way, it's who I am. So yeah, that was my very long-winded answer to that question.
So you made a decision to hold back revealing key information about Teddy's true character and motivations until pretty far into the book. Did you know on the front end that you were going to reveal what you did and when you did?
Yeah, I mean, so, I mean, don't tell my editors this, but I don't really follow the outline that I make. I always have an idea of how it's going to end, and I kind of have a framework in my head for how it's going to go. But then when I'm writing, I kind of just flow with what works best in that moment. And if I start to get too far off track, then I just revise my outline. I don't like try to force it back in. I just say, okay, well, I know this is how I want to end it. They're just going to take a different path to get there. So I knew that he was eventually going to be revealed to be more than what Maxine thought he was. But the moment, like, I knew that it was going to happen at like when she met his parents, but I didn't know exactly what time in the book that was going to happen. And I mean, I know I try not to like subvert the structure of romance novels too much, even though sometimes I do it just to be special. But I have a little bit of a case of not like the other girls when I'm writing, where I'm like, I don't want to do this because everybody else does this. I want to do something different. But I don't want to be like the guys who did Game of Thrones season 8 and like subvert expectations by being an asshole. I want to do it in a good way that makes people happy. So, you know, I felt like the appropriate time for Maxine to realize she was wrong about Teddy was when they had already kind of like begun a physical relationship, but she's just starting to realize that she's in love with him.
Was there a specific inspiration for the Alzheimer's plot line with Teddy's father?
So I didn't have like, I mean, I did have a grandparent who passed away due to dementia, but that actually wasn't the inspiration for it. It was more that I wanted to explore. So usually when I write a book, I have different motifs or like different things that I want to say with the book, or like themes, I guess you would call it if you are a literary person, which I'm not. But one of the themes that I wanted to explore was memory, because this, part of being a trivia champion is that you're doing a lot of memorization, but that doesn't work very well for Maxine. So I wanted to explore like the different ways that memory worked and what memory is. And so I thought that it would be particularly poignant and somewhat ironic if Teddy, whose whole thing is that he's really good at memorizing stuff, has a parent who is struggling with his own memory. And so it really like helps him, I think, reflect on whether memory really is or is like what is memory and how is it really important? Because I think that like our brains are always lying to us, right? Like memory is one of those things that we act as if it's like set in stone, but it's actually very fluid. And we don't really know what memory is. At the end of the day, all the science in the world is just like can't explain what a memory is. And so sometimes I get like deep into my philosophical shit and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna somehow like explore this, but I don't really have the answers when I'm writing. It's sort of just like bringing up these ideas as like here's just like another thing to think about.
That's really cool, actually. And if you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have necessarily drawn all those conclusions, but now you did. I'm like, oh, that's a whole lot more to think about.
I mean, a lot of times when I'm writing, I'll have like these like really big ideas, and then when they get on the page, I'm just like, all right, I don't think anyone else is going to see what I'm trying to do here, but that's okay. Like I can't execute everything that I'm trying to do. I'm not writing a literary novel. I'm writing a fucking romance novel, and then you can take what you want out of it. Because again, it's not like I know the answer to the questions I'm bringing up. It's just like I cram a lot in there.
So, who, if anyone, was your inspiration for Loretta Love?
Probably Barbara Howard from Abbott Elementary, which I was watching while I was writing this book. Yeah, she's fantastic. Kind of scary, but in the best possible way. And I wanted to have like an Alex Trebek-esque character, but I didn't want it to just be another white dude. I think that Jeopardy is slowly becoming more progressive, and so I wanted answers to reflect like a more progressive, reality.
As an author, do you mentally fan cast your books? And if so, who would you fan cast for? Well, we know for Loretta, but for Maxine and Teddy.
For Maxine, her character is probably based a lot on Natasha Lyonne. She's even named Maxine in part because I wanted to do the Max Heart thing, but really it started off as like an homage to her friend in Russian Doll. If anyone's seen that mini series Netflix, I'm obsessed with it. it's kind of like a niche thing, but I think that Natasha is super hot in that, and I just love her character so much. And so that kind of like chaotic, like self-confident energy is what I wanted to bring to Maxine, and like the Brooklyn accent and everything too. With Teddy, I don't know. I honestly, this sounds terrible, but I put way more energy and I care way more about my heroines than I do about my heroes. My heroes are just like cinnamon rolls, or like if I could take like my dogs and make them into humans, not in like a demeaning way. I actually think that dogs are better than humans, and I think they're incredibly intelligent in ways that we could never understand. Um, but yeah, I just like they're just like sweet, lovable guys. But they could be anyone really. Uh, and again, like I did not write I mean, I wrote Teddy before I met my partner, and then I met him. And I'm like, this is really eerie how similar you are to Teddy, like even in appearance and everything. So I would have a hard time fan casting. I'd be like, oh, I just want it to be my partner, which would be weird for everyone else.
Okay. So, Jen, the next questions are going to be more focused on you as a writer in general. But before we dive into that, this is probably a great place to pause and check in with Megan and see if we have any questions about what is love in the chat panel before moving on. So, Megan, do we have anything over there?
We don't have anything yet, but we'll be checking in a couple more times throughout the night. So while we go, if you guys think of anything, drop them in the chat box.
Okay, guys. So, Ozma, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Okay. So what comes to you first, the idea for the story or your characters?
So I think it goes kind of like I'll write like a one-line pitch. So it's basically just like the concept that I would pitch it as. So this one was like rivals to lovers set in jeopardy. But then the next thing I come up with is the characters, because I think the characters are the story really in romance. Like the characters and who they are and their dynamic is probably even more important than the plot. Because once you figure out who the characters are and what their like dynamic is, then the plot kind of writes itself. I mean, I wish it wrote itself. It doesn't. But you kind of the characters are what drive the plot forward, right? Because every conflict that they have is in some part based on their own character flaws. And yes, there is going to be like an external plot and there's like a villain, because I get bored easily. So I just try to keep things moving. I don't write like very slow. Those like, and I think there's nothing wrong with this kind of book, but like those slow, like emotional romances where it's like they don't really have any external conflict. It's just like two characters growing and fighting each other. And I really love books like those, but I just know that I'm not the right author to write those, because if I'm not having stuff constantly happening in a scene, that I get bored writing it. So I also have that external plot, but the way that the characters react to that external plot is still very like personality driven, if that makes sense.
So, when you think about your writing process, would you consider yourself more of a pantser or a plotter?
I'm definitely a pantser. I mean, like I said, I have the ending in my head. I know where I want to go, but it's all inside my head. I can't, as soon as I put it down on paper, it's like observing, like in quantum physics, when you observe the state of an atom, it doesn't exist there anymore. So yeah, once I write it down, then I'm like immediately change my mind, and I'm like, you know what? That's not good. You just have to roll with it. And some of the best scenes that I've written are ones where like I don't even know how I came up with this. They'll just be sitting there and I'm like, it'd be fucking cool if they were like doing 69 under a parachute right now. That was not in the outline, it just came to me. I was like, this would be cool. I wonder if I can get away with it. I'm gonna write it. No one's stopping me. And that is the cool thing about being a writer, is you have no supervision. Like you just sit there and you can write anything and no one tells you no. And then you turn this book in and they're like, okay, they're definitely going to tell me no. And I haven't been told no about any big things. It's always little stuff like, oh, you should change this like one tiny little detail. Like, okay. So you're cool with everything else? You're cool with all the weird stuff? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. I don't know if it'll always be like that. I've been very fortunate with Montlake, but they did not renew my contract. So after this, I'll have to go and try to submit to other publishers who might not be as lenient about just letting me go rogue.
So, where do you find inspiration for your story ideas? You have had an astronaut, Phantom of the Opera, trivia show, which are all very unique and stand completely alone.
I mean, honestly, I just write books about my special interests because otherwise, again, I'd be very bored. So I've tried to write things that I feel like are more like broadly appealing, but I don't know very much. If I don't know a lot about a topic going into it, then it's not as interesting to me because I'm like, well, like I think, like people who write, I don't watch a lot of reality TV, and I know that those kind of books are really popular. And so I've had many people be like, you should pitch this idea. And I'm like, yeah, but then I'd have to learn about reality TV and I don't want to. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that like when I like something, I like something. And when I don't, I'm just like, I can't force it, like the attraction has to be genuine. And so I just find ways to kind of shoehorn all of my personal interests and like hyperfixations into my books.
So speaking of standing alone, your chosen medium is standalone novels or series extended world building. Have you ever been tempted to revisit the side characters in a world that you built to give them their own story?
I would say that it wasn't really my chosen medium. My publisher chose that my books are standalone because the second book that I wanted to write was actually a sequel to The Astronaut and the Star with Katya. And I pitched it, I outlined it. I even was emailing back and forth with like Russian zookeepers at the St. Petersburg Zoo about how baby polar bears work. So I was like deep into the plotting of this book. And then a week after I submitted it to my publisher, Russia invaded Ukraine. And they came back to me and said, you know what? I don't think that we can really sell a book with a Russian cosmonaut heroine. And I was like, that's very fair. And so I tabled that one. And then after I wrote Midnight Duet, I really wanted to write Sabila's story. And again, I was told that like it wasn't that books sell better when they're standalone, essentially. And I do think that's true. I mean, because they want to try to get new readers, right? Each time, because I don't have enough of a following that I can just sell books on my name alone. So they're trying to sell concept-based books, and a lot of readers won't start with the second book. So from a business standpoint, I totally get it. But I really, really wanted to write Sabila's book. So I wrote What is Love, which is a new standalone concept. And now the book that I'm outlining right now and that I'm writing right now is Sabila's book. It is a Casper the Friendly Ghost retelling. And I don't know if it will get picked up, but it's written as if it were a standalone. Like the other characters from that book are in it, but like I explain everything as if it's the first time everyone's meeting them so that I can trick a publisher into thinking that this is a standalone.
Do you write to music or make playlists while you write? If so, do you make new playlists for each new book you write?
I'm very uncool and music is not a huge part of my life. Like I still listen to the same 80s music that I listened to when I was in high school. Like I have Spotify, so I've discovered weekly and it'll play new music for me. And will have like this giant mega playlist of all my liked songs that I sometimes listen to in the car. But when I'm writing, I just kind of write in silence because I just get so deep in my head that like there could be nuclear war outside and I'm just like, okay, but let me finish this chapter and then I'll go to the shelter. Like I'm deep in it. I got to get this thought down. So it's like a very weird trance-like state. Like I could have metal music blasting and I would have no idea. So it would just be a waste. So I just end up not having music on. Although I did make a Midnight Duet playlist, not for while I was writing, but just because that's such a music-based book that I made one for everybody else to enjoy.
So your storytelling threads strands of chaos throughout the plots, and our group would classify your books into one of our favorite subgenres of bonkers romance. Do you purposefully set out to write this type of unique plot, and what draws you to it?
I think this is just how my brain works. I think I've already touched on this already, but I do get bored if there's not bonker stuff going on. So this is just a function of me having ADHD and being like, okay, this would be cool, but what if we took it to the next level? Yeah, and that's why none of my characters ever have sex in beds, because I'm like, well, someone else has already done that, so my characters have to be special snowflakes that do their own special, unique thing.
So some might call your heroines unlikable or difficult, but I subscribe to Jan Goodall's quote that it doesn't take much to be considered a difficult woman. That's why there are so many of us. So what is the draw for you in creating difficult heroines?
Oh, I love that quote. Hell yeah, Jane Goodall. What a babe. I mean, I think that really we are all difficult heroines in our own ways, and anyone who doesn't think that is probably the most difficult of all. I don't know. I get bored if someone is too likable. I'm like, they don't have a lot of growth. They're just so nice, you know? And a lot of times it's like likable heroines, things are happening to them and they don't have a lot of agency. And even when they do, you're like, okay, well, this character is just a self-insert then. Like, this is just for me to experience the external plot. But I think with romance in particular, what a lot of times people are looking for is that combination of the character growth and that comes with falling in love, and also, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, the external plot as well. And so it's really hard to have character growth if you are already kind of a sweet baby angel.
True.
And also
Very.
just like I love bad girls. That's my type, you know? I want the bitch I want the goth girl who's gonna step on me. So I just write heroines that I think are hot.
Oh goodness. I agree. So what are you reading right now, and what are you currently recommending to your friends for summer reading?
So right now I have like a backlog of books that I'm supposed to blurb, which I didn't realize before I became an author, but this is like a really nice thing that you can do to help your other authors, your fellow authors out. And I really, really enjoy it. I think I write a bitchin' blurb and I love hyping up my other authors and like seeing them succeed. But I'm really bad at reading on deadline because as soon as I have to do something, all of a sudden something that I really want to do is like a job. And so I feel so bad because I'll get so hyped to write these books or to read these books, and I'm like really enjoying them, but then I'll just like for whatever reason procrastinate. So I can't read for fun until I finish blurbing a bunch of books. But I just finished reading Exhibited by Nellie Wilson, which is kind of like that sweet character-driven book that I was talking about. I think I compare it to like if Cat Sebastian met Schitt's Creek, but like in a forest. And so that's coming out next month, and it's just so sweet. It's so cute. Makes me want to barf. It's so cute. There's no like absolutely no conflict in the book, and that is okay. It's just two people falling in love, and it's like your perfect, like gentle, like fall in love story. And Nellie is an indie author who's also a former Jeopardy contestant. So she actually helped me with the research for What Is Love. So and then the other book that I am blurbing right now is, or not blurbing, just reading because I said I would, but is If I Stop Haunting You by Colby Wilkins. Because I've met her several times at book events up in Seattle. She is a debut author. Her book comes out later this year, and it is before I started reading this, I didn't realize how spooky it was going to be, but it is like about two horror authors who are trapped in like a castle together on a writing retreat, and the castle is haunted. And so it is like, but it is also extremely horny. Like they'll be like finger banging in the library while the creepy haunted ghost is watching them, and they're just like, do you think the ghost is watching us right now? And they're like, we don't care. And then in the next scene the ghost is like chasing them down the hall and like with their like rotting face, and I'm just like, this is so fucking creepy, but also they're like so horny, so I gotta keep reading. Anyway, if you can't tell, that is my full-hearted endorsement of this book.
I have
Yes.
friends that will so love that.
Yeah, I mean,
Making notes.
The Ring was the last horror movie that I ever watched, and I was so traumatized by that. I've never watched another horror movie. So I'm like the wrong person to be reading this book because the whole time I'm like, oh my God, it's so scary. And then I'm like, but they're funny, so you gotta keep reading. Oh, the title of the Schitt's Creek Cat Sebastian one is called Exhibited by Nellie Wilson. I saw that question pop up.
So what's coming up next for you that readers and fans should know about? Are there any events or conventions that the rest of this year or early next year that you'll be at?
I am going to be down in San Diego on June 8th at Meet Cute Bookshop to do a little signing. And that's it for the rest of the year. I did so many signings last year. I spent too much money. I'm not allowed to spend any money anymore. So for the rest of this year, I'm not doing anymore. But then I'm hoping that I will get a chance to go back to Love Y'all Fest in the spring of next year because I had such a good time at that. And that was like a really nice, like intimate conference where I didn't feel super overwhelmed and actually got to spend a lot of time talking with readers, which was really nice. Because normally it's just like you're basically just like an assembly line. Like they come up to the front of the line and they're like, sign my book. And I'm like, hi, what's your name? And then I'm just so focused on not spelling the person's name wrong or like spelling whatever I'm writing or my own name wrong in the book that I am not able to like really make a genuine connection with people because I cannot do two things at once. So I don't feel like signings are normally the best way to meet fans. I'd rather just, I feel it's weird to call people fans. I'm like, they're readers. Nobody's like my fan. That's weird. I'm just like a person, but yeah. Anyway, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so Jen, we're going to move back into fun questions to wrap up the evening. But before we do that, let's touch back with Megan and see if we've gotten anything in the chat panel.
So no questions. He did say she just wanted to say she loved the book. She loved Cinnamon Roll Teddy, especially when he was in Teddy fix mode, and that Maxine is so perfect to spice up his life. And I wholeheartedly agree. I was lucky enough to get an ARC, and I read this back in January. It was my first 5-star of the year. So we're just gonna like be not awkward, but just gush about it. It's definitely
Very
a
sweet.
favorite.
I'm so happy that people like this book because this is definitely, I mean, you're not supposed to pick you're not supposed to pick your favorite child, but this is my favorite child. I think it's the best book that I've written. I don't know if I'll be able to write a book this good again because this is the book of my heart. I put like everything that I truly love and care about into this book because I didn't know if I'd ever get a chance to write another one. So, you know, I was like, I want this book to be the one that makes me a bestseller. And I mean, it hasn't, but it's okay because I'm just really happy with how it came out.
It's amazing. We're gonna be checking in with me one more time tonight. So if there is any other questions, you still have a chance to put them in the chat as we wrap up.
So I have a quick question. Is there a heroine from a movie or TV show that is considered unlikable that you like or relate to?
I think, has anyone seen You're the Worst? It's that, if you haven't, yeah, it's so good. Nicole knows what's up, but that show is incredible. It's just two incredibly unlikable people falling in love, and there is a happy ending, or at least up until as far as I've watched, which I thought was everything, but apparently I've been told, Nicole has told me that there is more that I didn't see that was bad, but don't watch that part. Anyway, really, really good show. Very unlikable heroine on the surface. And then once you get to know her, you're like, oh my God, I would die for her. I understand the way she is the way she is.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so Jen, these last questions are what we call rapid fire, and they are just what they sound like, quick round robin style, whatever pops in your head, just say it, and then we move on to the next one. And with that, favorite liquid fuel when writing?
I'm bisexual, so I have at least 3 drinks with me at all times, regular water, sparkling water, and a hot beverage.
If you could have only one streaming service, which one would you choose?
Whatever Jeopardy is on, because that is the only thing I watch consistently.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Neither. I'm tired all the time.
Paper, or audio?
Um, ebooks for reading in the hot tub, audio for when I'm walking the dog, and paper for when I'm feeling luxurious or I want a trophy.
Best escape, winter mountain getaway or warm island hideaway?
Warm Island Hideaway times 1000. I am always cold. I have my space heater on right now and it's 70 degrees outside. I would die if I went to a winter mountain getaway.
Best go-to karaoke song?
Well, I want to say Phantom of the Opera, but it's actually Butterfly by Crazy Town,
Yes.
which is a romance. I just want to put it out there. It's a romantic song.
Okay. Tall, dark, and handsome or blonde and beefy?
I don't know why I would ever have to choose. I feel like they're all equally valid. Also, I don't really care what men look like. I don't know. My type is just like personality for guys. Like they all have to be personality hires. For women, it's just like, it just needs to be goth and mean.
Speed reader or pouring over every line?
Probably speed reader.
And with that, you have passed rapid fire.
Yay.
Okay, Megan. Final check-in is, do we have anything out there?
We do. Oh, Melissa, this is a good question. So a few of us here tonight met through an Immortals After Dark read-along group. So what's your favorite IAD book or couple?
Yes.
Before I answer, I want to ask if anyone has a guess on what they think mine is, based on what you know of my books. I don't know if my brand is strong enough. Yes, it is. I'm so proud of everyone. Yes, it's Sabine and Rydstrom. Of course, because she's the anti-heroine. And
That's
he's
good.
just like, a good boy who likes to follow the rules, and she just destroys him for fun. I mean, she has to, but like, she had a good time.
Love that. Kate says another hot redhead.
Yeah,
Yes.
I always forget that Sabine is redheaded for some reason. I just always like imagine her as like having white hair, which makes no sense because she doesn't. And every time I read the book, I'm like, oh yeah, she's a redhead. I don't know. I've read these books so many times, you guys. Although I hate to admit it, but I could not get through the newest one. I don't know what it was. It just wasn't working for me. Probably because I'm not really big on like the werewolf heroes. I just kind of find them boring. And it's weird because I love dogs.
I don't really associate them with dogs. Like,
Yeah,
I
but like they
know.
kind of have like their personality, you know? I think they're werewolves. I even think like the Valkyries kind of make a few like, dog references. So it's in story lore. I mean, I
Okay.
just think they're all kind of the same, like all of the werewolf heroes all kind of have that same kind of personality. So I stopped being able to tell them apart.
Probably a byproduct of being a pack.
Yeah, yeah. And that's fine. They all seem very nice. But I think that nice is boring. And so I would just like them to be more complex. Like all of the demons are in some ways a little bit flawed, right? Rydstrom, his flaw is that he's too like rigid in his thinking. And then what the fuck is his brother's name? Caleb.
Kate?
Cade, yeah, I want to say Caleb. I was like, no, Cade. Cade's thing is that he's like kind of, like he's a dirtbag. I fucking love Cade because he's a little dirtbag who doesn't want any responsibility. I love him with this like car filled with like energy drink cans and stuff. I mean, he's probably the most realistic hero. So I mean, just like and even Lothair, I mean, he is like the ultimate villain. So these guys actually had personality, they had zest, and then all of the werewolves are just kind of like, I'm loyal and I'm strong and I'm horny and that's my thing. And I like to play rugby.
Go rugby.
But am I wrong?
Oh, not
It's
at
just
all.
funny because like in a lot of shifter books, it's like werewolves. That's like the funniest thing. Like in a lot of paranormal books, it is werewolves.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, wolves are hot. Not as hot as like bears, but that it like doesn't lend to as many like romances in the same series because bears don't travel in packs. You don't have like the brotherhood.
Well, you could
Like
just
Kate's
read.
comment that the demons are personality hires for sure. 'Cause they are.
You could read the ones in my favorite that I make everybody read, the Shelley Lawrenson books, because she has all of the shifters. She's got the honey badgers, the bears, the lions, the werewolves, everybody.
Yeah.
Hers are more humorous, though.
Yes. Yes, they are. I mean, they're all chaos. It's basically what they are. And actually, they do refer to the some of the other they do refer sometimes to the werewolves as mutts. when they're insulting them
Yeah, that is true.
in the books. That's what they do.
Wait,
So your
Trisha
dog-
says she has her fave werewolf tattooed on her arm, so now I have to know which one it is. Wait, I can't see it.
Probably TJ, a
Probably
TJ
TJ
one,
Klune.
right?
It's
Yeah.
it's upside down at this angle, but that's one of the werewolves from Green Creek Wolf Song by TJ Klune.
It has to be TJ Klune if it's Trisha.
I
Yeah.
love that.
I need him to subsidize my tattoos.
Get them sponsored.
Seriously. I've mentioned it in his Facebook group. Said, so I need him to pay for my tattoos because the ones I have in my head still are a bunch of them based on his books.
Hell yeah.
Oh, goodness. All right, guys. Any other questions? Before I say my famous like lines, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and a giant thank you to you, Jen. It has been just a complete delight to spend the evening with you and to spend May reading What is Love. It was such a funny and wonderful book. Really, just the group really enjoyed it. We had so much fun group reading along and talking about it on Monday nights. So thank you, and thank you for coming and spending the evening with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. And it was also really cool to see people that I've chatted with on Instagram, but never actually like gotten to chat in real life. So this feels like the second closest thing. So I feel like I'm meeting celebrities.
Well, I feel like we're meeting a celebrity. 'Cause we got
Yes.
to meet you. So
I'm just over here eating my peanuts. So just a person.
oh goodness. A couple quick announcements before we close out tonight. Next week on the 27th, we're not going to be meeting due to the holiday here in the US. We'll be back for read-alongs on June 3rd, discussing the first half of Lila Ray's Single Malt. Lila will be joining us for the next OSRBC Authors Chat on June 24th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So go ahead and mark your calendars now. A full schedule of events will be going up on our OSRBC Authors Chat Facebook and Instagram pages in the next couple days. So be sure to follow us there. And good night, and look forward to seeing you in June. And the recording of this evening will be up most likely tomorrow. So have a great one, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.